Okay, so let's try a little word association to kick things off. If I say the word hacker and I ask you to, visualize an OS design for that person, what are you seeing?
Oh, I know exactly where this is going. It's the whole Hollywood aesthetic. I'm picturing a dark room, probably zero natural light,
Right.
and there's a guy in a black hoodie, maybe listening to some really aggressive techno music.
And the screen. It's always the same screen, isn't it?
Cascading green code.
Yeah.
Waterfalls of text just scrolling way too fast for any human to actually read.
Yeah.
And the user is typing furiously, bypassing a firewall in 10 seconds flat.
Exactly. It implies chaos. It implies like weaponized software. It just sounds
Yeah.
ominous. So if I told you there's a Linux distribution literally called HackerOS, you'd assume it's for, well, digital destruction, right?
That would be the logical assumption, yeah. Or at least something so complex you need a PhD just to log in.
Huh.
A tool for the Mr. Robot crowd.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you that despite the aggressive name and despite that whole moody aesthetic, this operating system is actually, well, it's kind of a sweetheart.
A sweetheart, that is not a word I usually associate with penetration testing tools.
I know, it sounds ridiculous. But that's the twist we're unpacking today. We're looking at a review by Jack Wallen from the New Stack, published just recently, February 14th, 2026. The title of his piece is HackerOS is what a Linux enthusiast's OS should be.
Wow, okay. That's surprisingly high praise. And it suggests the hacker in the name might be a bit of a misnomer.
Or maybe it's redefining who a hacker actually is in 2026. And that's exactly our mission today. We're going to figure out how something that looks so menacing, and we'll definitely get to the visuals, is actually designed for regular users, gamers, and yes, security buffs too.
So we're looking under the hood, checking out the tools, and seeing if this is a daily driver or just, a novelty.
Precisely. I think this is going to be a fascinating look at branding versus reality in the open source world.
For sure. Because usually, if a distro puts hacker in the title, it scares off the casual user immediately. It's like a big keep out sign.
Completely. So let's start with that identity crisis. What actually is the DNA of HackerOS?
Well, if we, strip away all the branding and just look at the architecture, it's built on Debian.
Okay.
Specifically, the testing branch of Debian.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because Debian usually makes me think of servers that haven't been rebooted in 5 years, ancient but stable. What does testing mean for someone listening who isn't a Linux expert?
That's a great distinction. So Debian Stable is that rock-solid enterprise-grade version. It never crashes, but the software can be years out of date.
Right.
Debian testing, on the other hand, is the rolling preview of what the next stable version will be. It's the proving ground.
So it's this kind of Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. You get much newer software, so your latest graphics drivers actually work, your games run better, but it's still reliable enough for daily use. It's fresh enough to be fun.
So it's built on a solid foundation. But Jack Wallen, in his review, points out something surprising about the target audience. You'd think a HackerOS is just for pen testers.
You would. But Wallen notes that the target demographic is really broad. He lists regular users, gamers, and cybersecurity enthusiasts.
Which is usually a recipe for disaster, honestly.
It is. A security OS is normally terrible for gaming because it's so locked down. And a gaming OS is usually full of bloat that a security pro would hate.
So how do they handle the first hurdle? The look and feel. Wallen says right after installation, you get this experience that leans hard into that movie hacker vibe.
It's the cool factor. Dark themes, moody wallpapers. He says it looks like the computer from a sci-fi movie.
Thank you, Hollywood, I think was the quote.
Right. But here's the trick. Once you get past that initial wallpaper, the actual interface is just KDE Plasma, version 6.5.4.
Which is a very standard, very user-friendly desktop.
It is. It's probably the most customizable desktop out there. And it's running on the modern Wayland graphics platform. So despite the scary name, you're looking at a very navigable, modern desktop.
So it's like walking into a spooky haunted house, but inside it's just a really comfortable, modern living room.
That's a perfect analogy. It's cosmetic cosplay.
Okay, so the interface is friendly, but let's look under the hood, because a pretty face is one thing. If I'm a gamer or a performance chaser, does HackerOS actually deliver? Or is it just Debian with a mask on?
It seems to have some real horsepower. It ships with kernel 6.18.5, which is quite recent. But what's fascinating here, and this is where they really lean into the enthusiast label, is the customizability.
Yeah, this part caught my eye. Wallen says you aren't stuck with the default kernel.
Right. For most people, the kernel is just this thing you don't touch. But HackerOS lets you easily install the Xanmod kernel, or the Liquorix kernel.
I love those names. Licorice sounds like a candy. But why would someone bother switching their kernel? What's the practical upside of that?
It all comes down to responsiveness. The standard kernel is designed to be fair to all your tasks. It balances everything.
Okay.
But a kernel like Licorice is tuned to aggressively prioritize the task you're looking at right now.
So if I'm playing a game, it shoves the game to the front of the line.
Exactly. It reduces latency. For a gamer or someone doing audio production, that millisecond difference really matters. It makes the system feel snappier.
That's a really important distinction. It's not just about hacking in the security sense, it's about hacking your own machine to run exactly how you want it.
Precisely. And to back that up, Wallen notes that it comes with pre-installed firmware.
Which sounds boring, but is actually huge.
It is huge.
Yeah.
One of the biggest pain points in Linux can be, why doesn't my Wi-Fi work? Because proprietary drivers aren't included in some distros.
This assembly required problem.
Right. By including that firmware out of the box, they're ensuring better hardware compatibility from day one. They're putting the user experience first.
And speaking of that experience, he mentioned some specific gaming tools came preloaded.
Yep. Steam is there by default, and Goverlay.
Goverlay, that's the tool for seeing your frame rates and temps on screen, right?
Correct. Again, these are things a pure security distro just wouldn't bother with. HackerOS is clearly signaling, please, play games on this. Have fun.
Okay, I want to pivot to what I think is the coolest part of this review, and it's about something that sounds incredibly dry, the terminal shell, but Wallen calls it a treat.
Ah, yes, the Zeesh versus Bash debate.
Right. So most Linux distros use Bash. It's the standard. HackerOS uses Dutch, or Z shell. Why does this matter? Is it just a hipster choice?
Not at all. I mean, Bash is reliable. It's everywhere. But it's also very strict. It's very 1990s in its unforgiving nature.
Rigid.
Very rigid. Wallen gives this perfect example that I think every Linux user has suffered through, case sensitivity.
Oh, the pain.
In Bash, if you have a command, he uses the example HackerOS Steam with the capitals, and you type HackerOS Steam all in lowercase.
Computer says no.
Computer says command not found. It fails.
Right.
Every time.
Which is so frustrating because you know the command is there, you just didn't hold the shift key.
Exactly. But in Zish on HackerOS, if you type it in lowercase and hit enter, the shell is smart enough to realize what you meant. It automatically corrects the capitalization and just runs the command.
That is magic.
It's a massive quality of life feature.
It sounds like such a small thing, but if you live in the terminal, that saves you hundreds of keystrokes a week.
Easily.
Yeah.
And it reduces that micro frustration. It makes the terminal feel like it's helping you, not grading your spelling.
I love that. It's HackerOS helping you be a lazy hacker, which is the best kind of hacker.
Efficiency is the better word, but yeah. Zish also has better history search, better plugins. It's just a more modern way to talk to your computer.
Efficiency, sure. Let's talk about networking. Because usually sharing a folder in Linux involves editing some text file that looks like ancient hieroglyphics.
The dreaded Samba config file, yes. But Wallen points out that because they're using KDE Plasma, it's incredibly simple. You just right-click a folder, go to Properties, click Share, and it prompts you to install Samba if it's missing.
Click, click, done.
And that's it. You're sharing, again, bridging that gap between scary HackerOS and I just want to send a file to my other laptop.
Okay, so we've established it's user-friendly, but they stuck the name hacker on the box. There have to be some gimmicks, right? A little bit of theater.
Oh, there are features.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are pretty fun. There's a custom command simply called hacker.
Just hacker.
Just hacker.
Yeah.
You type that in, and it spits out a list of tools for admins, developers, and, well, hackers. It's like a curated menu.
And there are subcommands.
Yes, like hacker unpack. But the one that really shows the personality of this distro is the command hacker game.
Please tell me this is what I think it is.
It is a text-based adventure game where you play. You guessed it. A hacker.
In a high-security digital fortress.
Trying to breach a mainframe. Yes.
That is so meta. You're sitting at a Linux computer, typing into a terminal, pretending to be a hacker on a Linux computer.
Layers of irony. But I think it serves a purpose. It adds fun. It breaks the sterility you sometimes get with, corporate distros like Fedora or Ubuntu.
It's an Easter egg that sets the tone. We take our tech seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Precisely. We should note what's not there, though. Wallen points out that while you get games and hacker tools, you don't get an Office suite.
No Word or Excel equivalents.
Not out of the box. And no email client either.
So you have to bring your own, which for an enthusiast distro, that makes sense. Most people have their own preferences anyway.
Right. Why bloat the install? Now, we've been talking about HackerOS like it's one thing, but one of the most surprising parts of the review is the sheer variety of editions.
Yeah, I was expecting maybe two, a light and a full, but there are 7?
7. And they're surprisingly specific. First, you have HackerOS Official, that's the main one, with KDE Plasma, for your average user.
Yep.
And there's HackerOS NVIDIA.
For the green team, I assume.
Exactly. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, grab this one. It saves you the headache of installing those drivers.
Smart. Removes a huge barrier to entry.
Then you have choices for your desktop. XFS and Geonomy editions. So if you don't like KDE, you're not locked out. Bad. Then there's HackerOS Hydra. Wallen says this one resembles Garuda Linux. It's all about a beautiful, highly customized desktop out of the box. Pure eye candy.
For the visual customization crowd.
And then, finally, we get to the truth in advertising. HackerOS Cybersecurity.
Ah, so this is the one that actually has the tools.
Yes. This is the crucial distinction. The official version is a general-purpose OS. This is the one loaded with pen testing tools for security professionals.
That makes a lot of sense. If I'm just playing Steam games, I don't need 500 password crackers clogging up my menu.
Exactly. And the last one is HackerOS LTS. Long-term support for people who want maximum stability.
That is a massive amount of choice. It really moves it away from being a novelty distro into a general-purpose project.
It does. But it's not perfect. Wallen called it a treat, but he did find some bugs.
Yeah, and some were a bit odd.
Definitely reminders that this isn't a trillion-dollar company. The language thing, for example.
The localization bug.
Yes. He said the desktop presented this strange mixture of English and Polish.
Wait, what? So half the menu is in English and the other half is in Polish?
Apparently so. And he couldn't change it. That's a classic Debian testing kind of quirk. Something breaks upstream and suddenly your save button is in a different language.
That would be confusing.
Slightly. And then there was a functional issue. Remember those custom hacker commands?
Yeah.
He tried to run hacker shell and it just errored out. The script was missing.
Oops.
Yeah. File not found. So it's still a work in progress. There's some jank.
But despite the Polish menus and the missing script, the verdict was still positive.
Overwhelmingly. He called it a solid mix of user-friendliness and advanced features. He said the deeper you dive into it, the rabbit hole, as he put it, the more interesting things you find.
So what's the big takeaway here? We have an OS called HackerOS that looks scary, plays games, helps you type, sometimes speaks Polish, and comes in 7 flavors?
I think if we pull back, HackerOS represents the current state of Linux evolution.
How so?
Well, think about it. 10 or 15 years ago, a distro called HackerOS would have been command line only. Impossible to install. Hostile to the user. A gatekeeper.
You would have to compile your own kernel just to get the sound working.
Exactly. The fact that today a distro with that name is this accessible, it says a lot. The difficult parts, hardware support, gaming, usability, those are largely solved problems now. So developers can focus on personality.
It's the death of the Linux is hard stigma, hiding behind a mask that pretends to be hard.
That's a brilliant way to put it. It's cosplay. It's cosplaying as a hardcore hacker system, but inside, it's a comfy gaming rig.
And honestly, who doesn't want to feel a little bit like a hacker while they're just checking their email?
It adds a little narrative to your day. It makes it fun. And things like the Z-Shell Fix Show, they genuinely care about the user experience, not just the look.
So if you're listening and you've been hesitant to try Linux because it seems too technical, maybe the one with the scariest name is actually the best place to start.
It certainly seems worth a download. Just be prepared to maybe learn a few words of Polish until they patch that bug.
Consider it a bonus language lesson. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive.
It was a fun one.
Here's a final thought for you to mull over. We usually associate the word hacker with breaking things. But looking at this OS, maybe the definition is shifting. Maybe a modern hacker is just someone who refuses to accept the default settings.
Oh, he wants to own their tools, not just run them.
Exactly. Is the future of personal computing about becoming a hacker in that sense? Understanding your machine enough to make it work for you, rather than just accepting what Silicon Valley gives you?
That is the question.
Go download an ISO, give it a spin, and let us know what you find in the rabbit hole. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.